Hello everybody, this is Mark London and my partner.
I am Elmer Beard.
And the two of us are here together today to talk to you about what inspired us to be partners in podcasting. And I think I'll start off with letting you guys know what inspired me initially. So we started out together, and Elmer and I were both at a Virginia Clinton Kelly meeting here in Hot Springs, Arkansas together, and we had known each other casually prior to that. And I listened to our political consultant who had come in to advise us about, this is a Democratic club, Virginia Clinton Kelly was Bill Clinton's mother, the 42nd President of the United States. And she started this club for Democrats to get together. And what happened is I listened to this political consultant telling us about how we lost a few segments of certain demographic groups, some young people, a few Hispanics, a few black people, etc., etc. And this is why and how we lost the election. And I thought to myself, really, this is a very different election than anything we've ever had before. So I was able to get the microphone at the end of the meeting and say this, that I think we've just observed something that's never happened in our country before, and that one of the primary reasons why the Republican Party was able to get a convicted felon, con man, somebody who said they were going to be a dictator on day one, who was obviously following the dictates of Project 2025 and was about to implement that we were in a dramatically different situation because of that. And the efficacy of the right-wing promotion of all of those efforts through Fox News and other subsidiaries, they were able to reach a much larger audience, and that's what affected the outcome of the election. And I said to myself, I said to the crowd, I said, folks, I think what we need is a bunch of people who are very much interested in facts and information and science and fairness and equal rights and taking back conservative notions about conserving the Constitution, the rule of law, and people getting together to understand what's really happening. And we need to start doing podcasts, so I am going to do a podcast. And I said I challenge everybody here to do the same thing. And then on the way out of the meeting, Elmer stopped me and said, well, I'll let Elmer tell you his story.
Thank you. It was that night that I had made a speech at the Virginia Clinton Kelly meeting, and on my way out, Mark and I decided that we were podcast partners. I was already planning to do a podcast, but probably not on this level, and I'm happy to have met him earlier and that he had the same interest that I had in podcasting. So I've had a lot of notes over the years that are necessary for my community and for the listeners, so that we can do what we can to save our country during times like this. It is very necessary that we would have something to say that's positive about our government while we're telling the truth about all the negative things that's going on. That's what makes us great partners in this podcast business. I have experience as an elected official, and I'm now retired, and I'll be using quite a bit of that experience in my podcasting and partnering with Mark. And I am a poet. I have a couple of books out, and we'll be sharing quite a bit of my poetry in my podcasting business. So with my experience as a retired elected official and presently as a poet, along with the experience I've had in education, I think we'll make great partners, Mark. We're on our way.
I agree with you. So now that we're working together, the two of us, we've been able to do a little bit of recording. And initially we called ourselves two, spelled TWO, conservatives, two Southern conservatives in conversation. And I think now we might change our name to A Conservative Conversation. And I guess we could tell the people what we're interested in conserving.
Definitely, we're interested in conserving the Constitution, and if we fail to do that, we will have disappointed ourselves because we have generations to follow us, and it's necessary that we have a Constitution that we be proud of today, just as we have in the past. So let us do our part.
Yeah, well, we can see what has happened with this new administration, and that is that the president, on his very first day in office, on Inauguration Day, signed a huge number of executive orders, one of which, not to mention, was just a direct violation of the Constitution by an endeavor to eliminate birthright citizenship, which was established after the Civil War, in order to allow people who were born in this country to be automatically considered U.S. citizens, no questions asked. And the executive order said, no, we don't want that anymore. And not to mention the fact that he released some roughly 1,600 insurrectionists who had already been convicted, either pleaded guilty or were convicted in a court of law for their part in undermining our efforts to certify the election on January 6th, 2021, which is the date that's stated in the Constitution for that certification to occur. And it's just an automatic thing. Once the vice president gets up there to read the vote tally, that's his job. And we can see what's gone on since then.
When we think about January the 6th, I always wonder what are the textbook going to write about that day when we have our students in middle school as well as junior, senior high studying government, and we see what happened, and the punishments were few, if at all, and we look back up on it as visiting the Capitol and having a party, and when it was as much violence as took place, we just can't look at that as it was a light afternoon. We were near losing our Constitution.
Yeah, I think it's also pretty remarkable, Elmer, that who was then the former president, who has now been reelected, Donald J. Trump, claimed and still claims hundreds and thousands of times that the 2020 election was in fact stolen, when the proof is that it was not stolen, and it was one of the freest and fairest elections that we've had in our country, according to his chief of cyber security, Chris Krebs, who said to the president and to the public at that time, he said, this is the freest and fairest election that we've had. This is a man who was appointed by Donald Trump, who was a Republican, and who had every interest in having the president win that election. But he observed, in fairness, what had actually happened. He did a good job of making sure that our election was free and fair. And now the president has turned on him for making that statement as if that were a criminal thing just because he doesn't agree with the president.
The sad point about that is that the truth will sometimes get you jobless. It'll get you hurt, and it could lead to your death. So we're very proud of the statement that one of the men of Trump told the truth, and the truth will have to follow us the rest of our life regardless to what he has said. Again, I think that when that is printed, someone's going to say what happened to our government, to the extent that we had that kind of conversion of law and order on January the 6th at that time.
Yeah. I have a hard time getting that image out of my head of the gallows being constructed outside of the Capitol, and then the crowd subsequently chanting very loudly and vociferously with apparent anger, "Hang Mike Pence."
Hang Mike Pence. Hang Mike Pence.
Hang Mike Pence. Mike Pence, who was Donald Trump's loyal servant and supplicant, and he was totally obsequious to the president. He did everything the president asked him to do, turned himself into a pretzel to make up to advocate for the president's lies during his term as the vice president. But one thing he had some honor in at the end, thank goodness. The reason we still have this conversation about the United States is that Mike Pence had the courage to do his duty as outlined by the Constitution and read the tally for the votes that made Joe Biden the winner of the presidency. Had he not done that, who knows where we would be today.
We would not have known what to do had he not done that. We were near war, and I'm happy that it developed the way it did. Our votes count, and when the day comes when they don't count, I don't know. That bothers me to the extent that I want to do what I can on the local level, have been an elected official here, to see that we continue to have free and fair election. I do believe in Garland County, as a former member of the election commission, that our elections are about as fair as that we'd expect them to be, and I'm very proud of our local government and our local commissioners.
That's cool, yeah. I think Elmer and I are planning to go forward by interviewing political candidates at all levels of government, including local hot springs. So folks that are interested in those things will label our videos so that you can watch those. And who knows, maybe people who live in different parts of the country might be interested in what's going on in hot springs, because it may in some way pertain to what they're doing. And we wanted to encourage people. That's the whole point of this, is you can see that we are not professional podcasters, but we are passionate about what we're talking about here, because people like us are the ones who are going to save our country from being turned into an oligarchic technocracy run by just a handful of ultra-rich people for their personal benefit. The Department of Government Efficiency, so-called, is really the Department of Elon Musk. And he succeeded at, firing the people that were investigating his illegal business practices and potentially going to impose fines on his operations and require him to do things illegally that might have cost him a little bit of money. And in the meantime, he was able to push the Verizon contract out of the way that the government was going to have with them for the communications satellites, etc., and give himself the award to SpaceX, his personally owned company. He's the CEO and major stockholder. So
one of the first things we want to do, or first person we want to interview and already check, is the Garland County election commissioner.
Oh, right.
We have an appointment with that person when we can plan it, and we trust that our listeners will be watching, so that we can have confidence in our own local government here that we're representing.
Another thing that we're planning to do is Elmer has connected with a very important statewide office contender who we will have on the show, who is going to run for an important office in Arkansas, and another at the national level that we've also contacted. So stay tuned for that.
By staying tuned, you can stay tuned with us, and we can keep you informed as partners in podcast. And we look forward to many, many more podcasts.
If you like what we're saying here, please push the subscribe button down below and keep in touch with us. So we're going to be posting across multiple platforms so that you can see us on all kinds of different places. Thank you.
Stay connected.